Hi, Shannon. Good morning from me. Afternoon to you or still morning?
Good morning here. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. How are you doing this Friday?
I'm great. I'm good. Glad it's Friday. It was another long week, but good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the little Power BI shirt as well, by the way.
Saturday morning learning.
Oh
Power
yeah,
BI
that's
10th birthday.
the SML. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which
On the
way is
birthday
it?
cake, it
This
says
way.
SML. Yeah. 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 Yep.
There we go.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah. The amount of like merch and cool little artwork and other stuff that came out around the 10th anniversary or 10th birthday has been pretty fun.
Really fun. And I can't believe it's been a whole decade. I've never done
It
anything for
doesn't
a
feel
decade
like that.
except
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, it still feels like 5 years ago. And I think we're all allowed at least a 2 year knockoff from COVID, so that doesn't count. So technically, it's only been 8 years, and we can celebrate again at the 12th anniversary for the 10th anniversary,
Okay, I can't wait for the live stream.
right? Like, yeah, with the title in there in quotes, like Power BI's 10th anniversary. Yeah, but yeah, this is your at least second or third live stream that you've been on with me.
I think third, maybe. So thanks for
Yeah.
continuing to have me back.
Of course, yeah. They yeah, I think there was one other solo one, and then of course the Dataviz champions that we did earlier in the year as well. So
Which was super fun.
oh yeah, I mean any of those community things where you get to see people flex their creativity, specifically around design and some of those like interesting things that like a Rube Goldberg device where they assemble things together that you would not have thought could achieve whatever that report output was. But I mean, it's really fun for the MacGyvering of those things. Probably a few English terms that I'm throwing out, but hopefully the people in the chat of the recording later understand those.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at some of that MacGyvering today, although I don't know how they did it, so we'll have to just speculate.
Exactly. But yeah, I think as always with a lot of the stuff that you do, the topics are going to center around community. But before I get ahead of myself and go straight into like the discussion for the day, with all the streams, let's go ahead and give you a little chance to give a brief introduction about yourself for those less familiar, and we can start from there.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name's Shannon Lindsay, and I am on the Fabric community team at Microsoft, otherwise known as the Fun team. And my journey here was like really awesome. I started as a user. I was working in nonprofit, specifically in public health, and we were really early adopters of Power BI. And from there, I got involved in the community. I started a user group. I then started speaking and going to conferences. And now I somehow landed on this team. So it's been a really, really cool journey. And I am based in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay. Yeah, and not Queensland, Australia.
No, but I've never even
Excellent.
been, so I'd love to go.
Highly recommended. I think also the area where Gilbert, I can never pronounce his last name, so I won't even attempt. But Gilbert Q.
Formo.
Yes, former guy. He's down from that area. But it's a lovely place. I have been and highly recommend it for anyone considering to go. But I think coming to the topic of the day, obviously within community, but then a little bit on like getting started and upping your skills. Where would you like to kind of start that conversation today?
Well, you tell me, but I think where we might want to start is just for folks. I know there's a lot of people on the call who have been using Power BI for a long time and who are also using Fabric, but I think we should maybe start with like, how do you even get started being hands-on in this tool and working with it? And like,
Yeah,
why is that
absolutely.
important?
Yeah, let's do that then. So like it's where's the start of the journey itself? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're ready, I can flip over to your screen.
I don't let's
Or do you want
talk
to just?
first.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I'm just thinking what I
that's fine
have
then.
pulled up is the Fabric community site, and we can show that off. And at the same time, I just wanted to talk about the fact that like so many people who are trying to learn new tools learn by doing, learn by
Mhm.
joining communities, learn by, documentation and tutorials and Microsoft Learn and Reed's YouTube channel and all sorts of different things. But like the main thing that the main way that I learn and kind of where I want to go with this today is just talking about actually using the tool, getting hands-on, getting practice, and also being able to build something that you can share publicly. That to me
True.
is like key. I've done a lot of interviewing for these types of roles and trying to help other teams make sure that they're picking the most talented people. And like in an interview, you can only go so far with like, I know how to do X, Y, and Z, because I would like to see what you know how to
Yep.
do. And if you're only doing that with proprietary data at work, like, it can only get you so far. So I'm a huge proponent of like building a public portfolio and sharing things in the community, sharing things on GitHub, making sure that you have something tangible that people can see. So I think that's where I was going with all that.
Absolutely. And I would agree on the whole idea of like it's a public resume, right? You need something you can hand to them to show quality of work, whether or not that is lineage of jobs or projects you've done, especially with Power BI. Thankfully, like there's outputs. You can't really, it's hard to show a data model, especially to a lot of people hiring you, but at least you can show the report side of things on what can be built that is either going to be pretty or effective, ideally both. Um, I'll at least say for my 2 cents, there is a degree of diminishing return. So if you're going to have something that's really, 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 really pretty and simplistic, that is aiming to serve one purpose of something. It's like almost like it's like the thing that you're going to have on the TV in the lobby of a company or on a book cover
Right.
that serves one purpose of needing a certain level of visual aesthetic. So it is good to sometimes also paired with that to have very simple, straightforward reports that are maybe a bit more dense, but clean, that serve really just presenting the information in a way that doesn't have to have the pretty bells and whistles, but it's usually good to have both those together. If you only have the straightforward ones, you're losing a little bit of like, a skill set that you can be demonstrating. And if you only have really, really pretty book cover reports, similarly, it's like, oh, are they more of just like a graphic artist? Do they actually know how to do practical reports for
Mm-hmm.
accounting, so to speak? Versus the executive might want pretty and all the little cards and KPIs. Usually finance and others like, all right, give me detailed tables with maybe some conditional formatting and icons. But I usually encourage people to try to make sure to cover the breadth of report types if they're building those out.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I think like in this fabric world, it goes so far beyond reports. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many different things, skill sets you might want to display, and different roles that you may be applying for, and all kinds of stuff. So I think there's a lot of it depends there as far as what you want to show and how you want to show it and what the best way is to show it. I'm curious for like all the folks that are on the line in the chat, if you have a public portfolio or you have a website or a blog or something that you share, can you just drop either a link to what that is or like how you share your work? Or if you don't have it, maybe mention that you don't. I'm just curious to know like um, how important is this truly to everyone on a broad scale?
And to your point as well, like just on like fabric stuff, is the other thing that I've just a little bit on like producing stuff to make up is Kurt Bueller's actually done a really good job of this, and I think Microsoft's even inherited a lot of his like the mermaid chart kind of diagrams where it's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
so the data transformation's here. It's going to go to this. It circles back to it's you're showing a process chain, right? And all that. So that is one other way that you can also demonstrate skills is if you built out a pipeline of any degree, showing the ecosystem. And I just linked Lakehouse end to end because the architecture has a cool diagram on the Microsoft Learn when I just quickly Googled for something related to that. But things like that can also be another helpful way to have a public resume, some images you built of a generic version of something you might have done internally. Thankfully, it's a lot harder to have sensitive data, PII data, and things like this, but you can have
Yeah.
generic diagrams. So that's another way to document your work, to show like what architectural things you've done, if any, with some of those. So just one other thoughts for some of that content production.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I also think like a big part of this work, whether you're doing the data engineering side or the analytics side, a big part of it is just like being able to communicate it. So, the
Yeah.
diagrams and I mean, being able to put what we do into plain English is a skill in and of itself. And I always call it the English to English translation from like the data to the business or vice versa. And so that's a skill that we could demonstrate too, for sure.
Your English to English reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite movies, The Fifth Element. What is it? Lady, I only speak two languages, English and bad English.
And speaking of English, I was just at the Fabric Community Conference in Europe, and it's always so incredible to me how many languages everyone else in the world speaks. So not only English to English, but all the other actual languages people speak. I'm always a little bit ashamed to have been raised in a society where we only speak English, but that's a total aside.
Yeah, yeah, and like it's the fact that we're like, I technically like, well, no, I don't speak. I know a few words in a language that I learned in high school 25 years ago. It's like, could you have a conversation? No, but I could be a tourist getting around and like ask for direction, bathroom, and probably a drink. That's yeah. But I agree
Nothing
with you on that. It's like
work
I
proficient.
wish I knew languages better, and it is not impossible to learn as you get older. We are neuroplastic, but we are less plastic than we used to be, sadly. So it is. I think somebody I read somewhere after, and this is anecdotal and subjective, but supposedly after the age of, I think it's like 18 or 20, something like that, learning any new language, you can never be. I think what's the top level? Is it fluent or is it native? Like whatever that very top level is, where it for all intents and purposes, it feels like you're there. Like there's no gaps. Like you just speak it as if you're raised with it. I think you can only get to like 95% of that for pretty much the entire population. You can never get perfect, but you can get really close after a certain age, just because some of that wiring is required from like 5 to 15 when you're actually developing those pathways or something like that. Just as a brief tangent.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm a little bit past that, so I'll just stick with the English.
Hey, we can get, yeah, exactly. Learn the touristy stuff when you travel to the countries. But yeah, I think yeah, I guess continuing on the idea, maybe a bit of either portfolios for the ones I need to look at the chat again. Did anybody share any? I think there was some
It looks
chat, there was
like,
some conversation with Bernard.
yeah,
Go
folks
ahead.
have them. Bernat and Elena both have websites. A couple of folks said that, they don't have portfolios. Donald and Dean, hey guys. Yeah, so I think like moving, like it's a really big, like it feels like a big ask to build an entire online portfolio, to like either build a website or use GitHub Pages to build a website, or even put everything in a GitHub repo. Like that to me can feel daunting. So I think maybe like where we can go next is talking about like smaller ways that you can build projects and share them and be sure that you have something that you can show off. And that could be for the purposes of applying for jobs or trying to sell your leadership on using a new tool or technology, or participating in community stuff. Who knows? There's like all sorts
Sure.
of reasons you might want to do it. But to me, like more bite-sized stuff is just much more approachable. When I think about building a whole portfolio, I've never done that, and I don't know that I want to.
I mean, I think there's so many schools of thought for both. What's the opposite of, like, I only know neurodivergent, like neurotypical. Yeah, it's like there's so many schools of thought for neurotypical, and especially for neurodivergent, that just tell you like, if something is overwhelming, break it down into its core components. It's if you're running a marathon, that seems overwhelming. Well, but if you're taking it 5 steps at a time, like, oh, well, I could walk 5 steps. I could probably walk another 5 steps. Yeah. So I 100% agree on that. Like, break something down into anything manageable so you can set goals, which, if anything, hits your reward center, gives you dopamine, and lets you motivate to keep going if you're actually hitting your own milestones that you've subjectively or objectively upset. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely how my brain works. Little pieces work better. For
Exactly.
sure. So why don't we hop over and take a look at some of the like ways that you can start to build a portfolio, share your work publicly, gain
Okay.
recognition, all of those things. Um, Reed has a bunch of links in the description, so please take a look at all of those. We're going to look at some of them together, but we're not going to go through all of them today. My job at work is working on these contests on the Fabric community, so that's where we're going to start. But I come from the community, and we want to make sure we're sharing other community resources as well. So I think we'll look at kind of what these contests are. I don't know why I'm putting that in quotes, contests, and then we will look at other kind of weekly, more bite-sized things you can do to practice. So where we are right now, for those of you that are unfamiliar, this is the Fabric community site. It is, let me make sure I get this right, community.fabric.microsoft.com. And in the Fabric community, there are a few different things you can do. We've got our forums where you can ask questions, and we've got people on the call like Dean who answer your questions. We've got inspiration in the form of galleries, so you can look at the work other people have done. You can download their files, you can copy their code, you can try things out. We've got resources like you can find local user groups, you can find other information about the product that you need, and then we link out to blogs, learning, and support. What we're going to talk about today is kind of just this like inspiration category. I don't know how many people actually come here intentionally to look for inspiration. I think a lot of people's entry into the community site is honestly searching online, or now probably asking some kind of AI where things are or how to do things.
Yep.
But for people who do land here, we're really trying to ramp up a new initiative that we're calling contests. And we have now been doing this for over 6 months. And we're just trying to get people to try something and share their work. So far, we've done quite a few data visualization challenges, so using Power BI. We just recently did our first notebooks contest, which turned out really cool. We also did a contest on Translytical Task Flows. And I'm trying to think, Jake, remind me, you were winner of the Translytical Task Flows, if I'm remembering that correctly. So we've got some winners on the line, people who have participated, but essentially we're trying to give you a really narrowly scoped challenge, and then in your own time you can participate and figure out how to do it, share your work. The idea is that eventually, and this is like my long-term goal, but I would love for these entries to be somehow linked back to the product, so that when you're working in a notebook and you want a template that someone has shared in the community, you could just pull that up right inside of Fabric. That's, long way down the road, I'm sure, but I'd love for that to happen. So with all that being said, what are the contests you can participate in? What does it look like? What can you do? We've got some examples of some of our contest winners here. What's on the main page is super visual. So this is our Dataviz contests. But we've got, links to different contests, and we update this as we're going. So this currently links out to the latest contests that we held. So this was our Dataviz World Champs, our Fabric Notebooks contest, and our Translytical Task Flow contest. So all of this is to say, we are trying to do cool, fun, new challenges to help people get their hands on in the tool and be able to build something fun. We've played around with like a beginner and an advanced category so that people who are just starting out with the tools can actually, have fun and feel like they have a chance. And then, of course, like, because this is also new, we're totally open to ideas. So like, if anyone on the line can think of, oh, this would be a cool idea for a contest, like drop it in the chat, reach out to me. Like there's lots of stuff we could possibly do. So I'm going to pause there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Reed? Where should we go?
I am a little curious, just like as a thought on like, I guess how would you do any gatekeeping between junior or like because essentially, between entry and advanced, if anybody in advanced entered in the beginner, they would essentially just be the automatic winners almost of that. And so I'm wondering, would it be like Scouts Honor type thing, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like
okay,
self-reported. So we've only done this once so far. And again, like all feedback is welcome. I
hmm.
think it went pretty well, but my opinion is obviously very biased. What we did for that contest was we said if you have a year or less of hands-on experience working in Power BI, it was a Dataviz contest. If you have a year or less experience, you're in the beginner category. If you have more than a year, you're in the everybody else. And that did seem to work well. The winner of the beginner category, his report was amazing. I was thinking like, whoa, this person's only been doing this for a year. And it turned out that they had experience using other Dataviz tools, not
Yeah,
Power BI. And they were a Dataviz designer by
yeah,
profession.
yeah.
So we'll have to like figure out how that works moving
I think
forward.
you
But
can do like a self-reported just a test, like just sure you could GPT it, but have like a questionnaire that has like, a yes and rights, and just have them report that, and only they see their score or whatever it is, but that will tell them, hey, I think you're likely probably going to want to apply to the advanced category or beginner. So like maybe just a really basic skills test that, hey, if you're not sure which bucket you fall into, take this test and see how much information you know.
yeah, yeah, that would be great and probably pretty easy to implement. So
Yeah, exactly. Like so
yeah,
many things, it's like Claude or GPT or others, I'm sure would be really, really easy to write a series of questions if you describe the contest well of the tool.
yeah, definitely. I like that suggestion.
I like
I'm
the
also
comment
just
from Dean. There's other data viz tools besides Power BI.
yeah, and like I'm not sure if other people are seeing this or if I'm just making this up, but I feel like as Fabric is becoming more widely adopted, we are getting more people coming into Power BI that are coming from other tools because their organization is like shifting really like firmly into the Microsoft stack. So I do feel like we're now getting a lot more people that are transitioning from other tools as opposed to people who are starting with BI from scratch. Are you seeing that as well, or am I making that up?
There has been a shift of, there's always been a shift back and forth of Tableau to Power BI. It does seem like a little bit post Salesforce acquisition that some of the community flavor and like underdog feel that Tableau used to have has gone away a bit. And I have seen a bit of a migration, at least from that one tool, of a few companies that haven't been as happy with the direction that Salesforce has taken the tool. Again, I'm not too privy on like what that is. But I have seen a few companies switch over due to like increasing costs and a few others on a tool that already is. It makes beautiful things, but it can get more expensive. But that gives, to your point, I think because we're now probably 10 years, 10 to 15 years into modern visual BI tools, that people who have been doing it anyways already have somewhat of a base experience of understanding visual design and like bullets versus comparative chart and all that other stuff that goes into like just universal skills on report design, regardless or agnostic of whatever software you happen to be using. Or
Yeah.
Miss Amsterdam mentioning from, oh God, you had to come from MicroStrategy. Ooh, that's a rough tool to use. I haven't looked at it in like 5 or 6 years, but I feel like it still very much reflects what it used to be, not where it needs to go.
I actually had the pleasure of meeting Michelle at FabCon, and she is like a super duper expert on MicroStrategy and is now helping people transition into Fabric. So it was so interesting to talk to her about what's going on with that shift.
I think they were essentially like the first kind of BI company, like back in the early 2000s, that started doing that stuff, even before like SSAS or anything existed, if I remember. I know like they're like the grandfather of a lot of this stuff. But
I
kind of
feel like
like
that's
building a
an
dot. Yeah.
insult.
No. I mean, Excel's been around for
40
what,
years.
40 years? And it's largely not changed. Like, I mean, it has more cell formulas, but its structure is pretty much identical. I better said, it's not the grandpa, it's the pioneer. Maybe that's a better phrase for MicroStrategy. But the way it's been described to me, it's kind of like a .NET report. You can do a lot of things with it, but it requires a lot of it can require a lot of time to configure the gears to get it exactly how you want it.
Yeah.
What you say there, yeah. What's good while it lasts, but happy to be in a new ecosystem. That's how I feel about paginated reports. They serve a purpose. But yeah,
yes.
I mean, Microsoft's even told me in telemetry on those. Like, there are a ton of existing paginated reports that are out there. There aren't that many new paginated reports getting built, but there's a lot to maintain. It's a thing that is like it's mostly legacy to me of like I want these to continue to exist, but not a lot of like, oh, I need 500 new ones. I occasionally get them from clients, but I can only count on like 3 fingers. That I think the number of experts that exist, and one of them retired, so maybe 2 now. Of like I can build a paginated report. You might have built one at some point, but it's a very basic one. I'm referring to like a very bespoke, pretty, custom everything, like, you know, really like to the T. Like I saw this on a book cover. I want that exact report. You know, that the experts of that is like I only know like 2 people who are MVPs who could do that level of work left in the tool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digression. Yeah.
It's not going to be me. But
yeah.
Okay, so maybe going from the past and jumping to the future.
Yes.
And since we have Jake on the line, why don't we take a look really quick at, so I'm going to switch from Dataviz into the other kinds of contests. So let's take a look at the Translytical Task Flows and the notebooks kind of entries, and thinking about the future and Fabric and like where it is that we're going. So let's take a look at just what those entries looked like. And apologies for all the scrolling on the screen. I'm just going to I'm going to click 700 times and get to the link. That one did not work, so we'll just go here. I cannot type. So much pressure. All right, so we're going to navigate into the Translytical Task Flow gallery. And what we're doing in here, so the way that we allow people to showcase their work on the community site is called galleries. It's not necessarily intuitive, but that's what it is right now. And within the Translytical Task Flow gallery, the idea is that we started with some templates that the product team shared with us. And they just wanted people to know, like, what can you actually do using Translytical Task Flows in Power BI. So this is now we're getting into Fabric and Power BI together. So we had all of these like cool examples. And then from here, the contest went into people designing their own Translytical Task Flows that you could actually use. So let's take a look at the very first entry. And this, Jake, is this yours? Scroll down here. Okay, I cannot see whose this is. Okay, it is Jake.
This is an unknown cool report.
No, it is. It says right here, Jake Duddy. Okay,
oh, there
sorry,
you go.
Jake. Okay, so Jake took this super cool idea, which he displayed in the context of a game, but you could actually really see how it would be easily applicable to doing any kind of like multi-row input within using Translytical Task Flows in Power BI. So this was one of the winning entries. I thought this was super cool. And Jake, feel free to type in the chat, but if I remember correctly, you were inspired by one of the very early versions of a game that someone created in Power BI. I cannot remember who, but let us know. So what I really like about this entry and where Jake took this is that not only like does he have everything you're going to need to be able to replicate this as code here so you can actually use this and implement it. But he totally walks us through the process. And like you were talking about earlier, Reed, he's got this like really nice diagram here. So this is a beautiful example of how you could use just a simple entry here in this gallery as something that you can share as like a portfolio item.
And I love a lot of these things that go into these games, and I haven't looked into it, but like, didn't Phil Seymour just posted a snake game, didn't he? It's like anybody
Just or
who's
like back in the
willing,
day.
yeah. Anyone who's willing to do stuff like this is just, it continues to impress me, like how much the language in DAX can do in Power BI. But I haven't, this is the first time I've seen this one. So the architecture just is really cool that you get a full diagram of this. And I don't know if this is PowerPoint or not, but I love the pencil sketch designs that a lot of this has. And I do know that is a line type for like shapes in PowerPoint now, which is just adds to it makes it feel friendlier, I think, and less corporate, right? Like somebody just opened up a notepad and sketched this out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, Jake just dropped in the chat. He did this in Excalibur, which I'm not sure if anyone has had a chance to play around with it. It is really, really cool.
So like Excalibur, but Excalibur.
Yeah,
okay.
but it feels like the next version of, what was it? It was like draw.io or something. I'm trying to remember what the precursor that I used that I do now use Excalibur was. But it's really cool. It's easy to use. You don't have to be an artist to make something look beautiful like this. So I think that's a nice little takeaway. Check out Excalibur if you're interested in doing any kind of architecture diagrams. They look really nice and professional, and they're helpful for work and play.
That's
awesome,
cool.
Thanks. Yeah. So this was just a super cool and winning entry for the Translytical Task Flows contest. I think the next thing we might do is take a look at the notebooks contest and talk about that a little bit. We're like really leaning heavily on the Fabric side of things before we go into the Power BI side of things. And actually, sure. Reed, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So as we're talking about being hands-on in Fabric, can you talk to us about how you would do that if you've never touched Fabric before? Where would you start?
I mean, there's the half joking answer of just like starting the Fabric trial, which Microsoft is very good about providing. But honestly, because like Fabric is an extension of Power BI. Like it's not a replacement of it. It provides better upstream items for your data. Like it's the number one feature for it is really just options for managing, storing, processing, transforming your data in a centralized place. So look first at what would work for your company, because there's a lot of tools there. And I think it's a little old at this point, but they're like the Data Goblins blog from Kurt Bueller has a lot of really good like flow charts and diagrams, like here's everything there, here, like this relates to this and a bunch of other stuff. So that's a great way to maybe like, all right, what's available, and hey, what might apply to my company? Like if you're a working for a business that has like 15 retail locations, you're probably not going to be doing much data sciencey stuff necessarily, so you don't need those. But maybe a lake house or a warehouse might be relevant to you. So I think that's the best place to kind of start with is like it would be like walking into a hardware store that sells a lot of stuff, but only some of it's applicable to the house that you live in and projects that you might want to work on that house. So figure out what the things are that will be useful to you, and then start exploring those. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the chat, Microsoft Learn's a really good way to do snack size stuff. So once you find a product that you want to learn about, like set aside 15 minutes a day to go through one lesson at a time, or 15 minutes 3 times a week, just very small amounts where you can iteratively, like slowly start to digest so the content and learning about it a little bit. Kind of would be my encouragement in those phases.
Awesome. And then what about like, okay, so you decide you want to learn it, you decide you want to get like actually touch the tool, do things in the tool.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it? How would you
In ter-
recommend that people do it? Because obviously, the reason I'm asking you that is there isn't really a straightforward way right now. So, how would you recommend that people get started with using Fabric?
Yeah, I mean, if you already have a Power BI Pro license, ideally, that would probably be the most straightforward way to potentially be able to request the Fabric trial and just go poke around in a playground. But yeah, like you would require a school or a work account, which already is a bit of a limiter for some individuals. There's no like true free sandbox, but the other suggestion is, quote me if it's still available, but there is still offered an E4 or E5 license that you can sign up for. That's part of like you get a few months of that and you basically get all of that. So you could sign up for one of those and then use that in a pure vacuum to then sign up for your trial license. So it's not straightforward, but there are some hidden free Office licenses that you can sign up for that I think it's either like nonprofit or education or something, but there's no official checks for that. So like it allows you to go from that avenue. So I'll see if I can find the link, or maybe if you know it, but I know that that's often a direction for people who don't even have an email that they could use that would work. They only have Gmail or something.
Yes. Yeah. So I will just second that. If you really want to start learning this on your own outside of your corporate environment, the best way to do it now is to sign up for one of those Microsoft 365 licenses. And they go all the way from business basics, which is E1, all the way up to this like huge Big Daddy enterprise thing, which is E5. And there are certain limitations for some of the trials for these Office products. Fabric trials are enabled because they were being abused, or sorry, are disabled because they were being abused. So it's a bit of trial and error to figure out how to get an actual trial license. With that being said, we know, and now I'm like putting my Microsoft hat on, we know that this is a huge issue. Leadership knows, leadership sees it, and I do believe, I have nothing official to be able to confirm this, but I believe that there will be something within the next year or so where people will be able to actually try this. That's pure speculation. That's not an announcement or anything, but it's known. So if you want to get hands-on with Fabric itself, my recommendation would actually be people who have been in this community for a while, which is a lot of folks that we have here on the call. Some of us have this thing called an M365 developer license. So this was a free license. It still exists, the M365 developer program.
Yeah.
So I have one of these. I'm sure there are other people that do. And with that developer program, those of us who signed up really early on before it got blocked, we got access to Fabric trials, and we have 25, either 20 or 25 licenses within our own M365 developer license. So, I mean, I hate to say this because it's like very gate kept, but if you can link up with someone that has access to that program, you could ask them if you can use one of them. So
yeah, that was the one that I was thinking about, because that is technically in perpetuity. Like you can continue to get a renewable license for that if you meet certain criteria. But you get you get like more than one. You get is it like 5, or what was the number you said?
It's 20 or 25. I can't remember which.
Yep.
But that's right. So if you can find someone that has that, then you could just piggyback off of them.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, I have one of these, and my brother is a Dynamics consultant, and he needed to do some Power BI stuff and also Dynamics stuff, and so I was able to share it with him for that. So there's that. Okay, but so now that we have determined it is a bit difficult to get yourself a Fabric trial, do we want to jump into talking about Power BI?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. So for the purposes of like building a public portfolio or sharing your work or whatever, Power BI to me seems like the easiest because it's visual. So it's like something you would want to build and share. And I think that we have, interestingly, fewer licensing restrictions with Power BI as well, because you can, if you want to get hands-on, you can download Power BI. If you have a PC, you can download Power BI and use it completely for free without signing into anything. Where you're going to get stuck is if you are trying to then actually publish that to the web so that you have a link that you can share with people. With that being said, if you are working in Power BI and you decide that you have something you want to share with people, but you don't have that license, we actually have a new feature on the community site. And right now it only exists inside the contest gallery, but we're going to be expanding it to all of the other Power BI galleries. And what this is when you publish a PBIX file to the gallery here, it automatically uploads it and gives you that publish to web URL. So it'll automatically give you a published file that you can then share with people. So that's like one tiny little win that we've had that we can share.
Yeah, and I would agree on like the any of the galleries that are available in here, whether or not it's for the reports as well. I know it's not used as much, but there's like a themes gallery, anywhere where you can just publicly post those, especially for the fact that these give chances for people to vote on and stuff too. So it's a nice little extra icing on the cake if you get a bunch of likes on one. So it's like, hey, I didn't just build this; other people thought it was cool too.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm just responding to one of the comments in the chat about the auto renewals of the trials, which are so mysterious. It's never guaranteed they're going to happen, but often they do. And you never know what day it's going to end at, because there's a little countdown that tells you how many days you have left.
Yep. It's like a doomsday clock that keeps resetting.
Yes. All right, so jumping back to Power BI, I want us to just take a look at one of these entries here where someone has uploaded a PBIX file. Here's a good one. So you can see that this person, when they submitted their entry, they just uploaded a PBIX file, and we are actually using Power BI embedded here to display this here on the community site. So again, if you built something in desktop and you wanted to publish it and share it, you could add it here in the galleries. Right now, it only exists in the contest gallery, but it will be more widely available within the next couple of months. So this is just a nice example of that.
I will say one thing is and I actually am curious. The question here is, now that we have the smooth line, I'm sure some data scientists would prefer the straight, but like, do you ever see any reason to not use the smoothing? Like, I've always hated our line chart because, in general, I would say most UI, everything is rounded. Like, sharp edges don't look pretty. So like, I exclusively use the spline now, I think, for everything. So every time I see the old one, or even like, sadly, the auto-generated reports that Microsoft builds, is like, you have the technology. Why is it using the smooth line? I know it is more accurate for locations. It makes it easier to tell, but our line charts look worse than any other visualization software, I would say, like before the smooth came out. Because like Tableau, all the others, they always at least smooth the edges a little bit versus our jagged mountains that we have on ours.
Yeah, and I pulled up a line chart as you're talking about this. So I'd be curious to hear actually what Elena has to say in the chat. But I mean, you nailed it. Like the main criticism of using those smooth lines is that they're not precise and you can't actually tell where the point is. But yeah, visually they look more modern, more appealing, I would say.
I'd say the really big, like if it's huge lines that are like this, you get a lot more like roller coaster stuff. But one like this with tons of data points, it's I think it gets more accurate because there's less distance for it to curve, and what you end up getting is just little rounded edges over the peak. So I don't notice as much of the like loopy roller coaster stuff. But if you only have like 5 or 6 data points, that's when there's a huge difference between the two of them. The smaller it gets, the closer they look outside of just curving with that. But yeah.
And I know that, like criticisms of Power BI abound when it comes to what we as Microsoft are doing with the core visuals and how we're focusing on those and improving those. And it is happening slowly but surely. But yeah, smooth line charts, not the default. There are reasons why, but.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. It's a beautification, not an accurate, which I do get is why it's not the will never be the default setting for it. I do still find the as one like anecdote is like, you know, we have the line type, but we also have the rendering type where it actually does have like, it has bevel, rounded, a couple of those others that we've had since.
Yep.
That doesn't do anything. Like, I think if you zoom in, like if you have a 5K screen and you zoom into the point, you will get like a teeny tiny little thing there, but like it is impossible to actually notice any difference between those the 3 or 4 types that you have in there. I've just found it funny that it's always been there, but I think that's a completely like useless feature because it's like it changes 2 pixels on your screen.
Yeah, I similarly have also like I've wondered what do those even do. So
if you have like a really high resolution screen, and you well, now you can zoom in on Power BI. Like if you zoom in like 500% and you look at the teeny tips, there will go from like a point to it will add a little itty bitty teeny tiny curve to the top of the tip, but you would have to be you would need to be at like a 10,000%. And this might, let's see, does this have like bevel? I think bevel or one of the ones curves it a little bit. Yeah, you see how that has a teeny tiny curved round on some of those? It's not perfectly pointed.
yeah,
That's what it changes. It is such a microscopic. It's like, oh, I'm gonna, you've lost 3 hairs, while showering today. Like that. That's how the percentage of change that it does. It's imperceptible. I think the only time I've noticed it is when you make the line like 30 pixels wide, then you can tell a small difference. You need gigantically like sausage fat lines to notice any change. But I do find it funny that it's available, but I think for the vast majority of people probably ever on the chat, like you can't tell. There's a couple of things. Yes. So yeah, Lena doesn't like sharp lines except for stock exchange. Yep. And then Bezier curves, I think. What was the other one? But yeah, it's a very fun but useless feature that came out day one that everybody would all be scratching their heads like, what did this just change? I've selected 4 items. Nothing's happening on my page.
Well, okay. So speaking of Dataviz and thinking about all the different like ways you can participate in Dataviz challenges and just like getting hands-on and practice, I think for me, especially when I was first starting out, the biggest challenge was like, okay, well, I cannot use my company data. It's obviously proprietary or, sensitive, can't use that. So how do you even get started building these things and practicing and learning what these Bezier curves are and all of that? So I'm going to jump over. Actually, we're going to leave the Fabric community and stop talking about just contests for the moment. And I'm going to jump over to another initiative that I'm so lucky to be a part of, that we have a lot of fun with. And this is called Workout Wednesday. So what we have here, and I know there are a lot of people on the line who have participated in this in the past, we basically every single week, and we've been doing this since 2021, I believe. So every single week of the year, we share a new contest or a new challenge, and we give you the data. We give you kind of, like what you should recreate and what the requirements are. We give you the final file so you can look at it and reverse engineer if you want. And this is just a nice way to kind of go through these challenges. And either for me, when I first started doing it, I made a concerted goal where I really wanted to improve my Dataviz skills. So you could do that, or you can just, again, get your first time ever hands-on using these tools. I think this is a really nice place to start. And if you go all the way back to the beginning.
All right, I like the one that Gary did recently with the height over time. The fact that we're getting shorter.
Yeah.
It was like the report was cool for sure, pretty, but it was more just like, oh, I didn't realize we've actually been getting shorter on average. It kind of surprises me because like it usually drives on like it's diet and health, and which generally gets better with time. So the fact that it's overall we've been shrinking globally. was more curious. I'd love that. It's one of those where like in my brain just like I would like to start to know some of the correlated effects that might be causing this because I can't imagine it's health and diet.
I actually have not looked at this, but
When
here's
does
some
it
nice smooth
when
lines.
is yeah, so it looks like so for women 1980-ish was the tipping point, but for men it was is that 60 or 80?
So small.
I think so it's 1960. Okay, so right around the 60s for women is when the height started going down, and then for men it was the 70. Is that that's
Yeah,
actually
a little
interesting?
bit
There's a
later.
decade lag. Yeah, those are the stuff from like a statistics and economics perspective. Like because my brother has a PhD in economics. I love these things because it's like what causes what's correlated with this, you know? Like what's socioeconomic, political, or geographic things can contribute to that.
Yeah,
But it's a
yeah,
significant drop. That's a
it is.
pretty, yeah,
It is.
five
Yeah, and one of my favorite things
centimeters.
about
Yeah.
these challenges is like finding all of these interesting public data sets are unearthed. So even if you don't want to do the challenge that's being provided here, you can at the very least like find some cool public data sets to work with.
Jake had an
So
interesting question, which is I actually do know what the answer to. Is like, do shorter people live longer? That is actually true. Yeah. So, the within a range, the shorter you are, usually the longer you live. Like tall people actually like same with big dogs. The bigger your body is, the quicker it is to break down, develop health effects. Like a 6'5" person will live a few years less on average than a 5'5" person.
I'm gonna live forever.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like you're pretty much fine between a range. If you start getting any higher, taller than a certain spot, you're going to have a likelihood of developing health issues. And if you're below a certain height, you'll start developing health issues for genetic reasons, generally.
Interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
now my brain is going to creating the next challenge, and that's where we add health data to this height data.
Oh, yeah. Like, well, at that point, we got to get a scatter chart because we're comparing multivariate analysis on that, right? Yeah.
I think we just gave
Yeah.
ourselves an assignment.
There you go. Yeah, this stuff's so much fun. I actually am curious on this. Is just a brief question to you, just on Workout Wednesdays, because you provide the data sets, right?
We do, yeah. Let me just scroll down here and show you. So yeah, it's pretty simple. We usually try to upload it to our World in Data, or we'll provide either a URL or an Excel data set. So we always provide the data. We always cite it, make sure you know where it's from.
Does it have
One
to be
like
real
just
data always?
no,
So
no,
like
and
my
actually
question
we've
to you,
had
yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say we've had some where people create the data sets using AI and then
Yep.
go from there,
I
which
a
is
thousand
fun.
percent on that. Yeah. So like I regularly will have a a lot of my videos come from client requests. Like I build something and like, okay, well, but they have the data that fits this. And I just chat
Yeah.
GPT, hey, I need data that's gonna be seasonal. It needs to have like block categories where this kind of a pattern and give me 5,000 rows. I've had it spit out a 100,000 row table before from stuff like that as a fact table. But I find that it's so easy now to have a thought of I know I want a chart that's gonna show trends like this, but it needs to be obfuscated and hidden. It needs to have some outliers. And you can just ask one of the GPTs and it will just spit out a fact table for you that will have that. And if it's not perfect, hey, I noticed that it's the seasonality is 1 for 1 over the years. It needs to look different every year. Like whatever prompts and it just give yourself 15 minutes. So for anybody like thinking about submission ideas to this on like maybe a data set, if because I think you guys take ideas on top of submissions for contests, but I love how easy it is to help to put raw data to an idea using AI as one many of its many use cases.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And actually for both for Workout Wednesdays and for contests, we've had people who have done like the whole entire thing using AI, from like generating the data set all the way through to like using Copilot to start their visuals and then tweaking them from there. We also had a really cool Workout Wednesday where Zoe Douglas created a whole entire report using Copilot. And then she did tweak it a little bit, but it's a really nice looking report. Let me see if I can find it here. But anyway, yeah, using AI, highly recommend.
Jake just had a mention as well too. Like Faker is a good Python library for creating data, which I've been doing a lot of MCP work recently. So I might take that aside. Like, hey, maybe I could pair that with asking AI and have it use the Faker library to get to the result a bit faster with more real looking artificial data. That's the goal, right? Is you don't want any fake data to ever look fake. Like it can't be
Right.
too perfect on its patterns. It needs to have like enough irregularities in it that it makes it fun to chart.
Yeah. Yeah, and there has to be patterns and all of that.
But yeah,
like,
exactly.
I think even like 5 years ago, creating fake data sets was kind of hard, and now it's super easy. Cool. Okay, yeah, and this is just the report that Zoe created completely using Copilot in Power BI, and then she tweaked just like a tiny bit, but she used it for the design features, and it's a nice looking report.
I like this one. It's a nice.
Yeah.
There's something simple about like good color gradients that helps with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. The one like kind of caveat, of course, with using AI to generate anything visual is like it's often not going to be accessible. You're going to have to make sure you're checking color contrast and all that stuff, but always a great start.
Yeah, very cool. And yay, curved lines.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got the curved lines in there. I'm looking at Donald's comment in the chat about some kind of a challenge for modeling. He was calling it Modeling Mondays, which has a nice ring. And I was just asking, like, what's the output? What's the final product? And he's mentioning that it would be like a table design.
I think it's the right relationship with me. Yeah, okay, yeah. The product would be table design.
One thing when we're talking specifically about Power BI, like we all know there's so much more to it than just the visuals. There's so much time spent on the modeling and the DAX and everything that goes into the report before you start visualizing. And I feel like I haven't yet seen a good way to like do that as a contest. There's lots of things you can follow along. Like Ruth had was it 30 days of DAX? And then Alex Powers had the 30 days of, does the query folding Power Query challenge, whatever that was. So there's a lot of things out there that exist in the community, but I haven't seen like how you share that result.
Yeah, so I was doing a quick message. So I got the last part on like sharing the result. Is this in regards to like the stuff that you're doing with the AI? Or I think I missed one sentence in there on which things that are hard to share.
Oh, I was just thinking about like contests or challenges for the other pieces of the puzzle of Power BI. So the modeling, the DAX, those both could be lumped together or totally separated depending on what you're thinking. So yeah, Ruth Pazuello with Kerbal had one. Alex Powers had one. There's lots of things that have existed, but I feel like we should resurrect those.
I think the one now, so actually, Power Query, yes, 100% DAX. I mean, and I hope you know why. Like what just came out for DAX that everybody is going bananas on, to quote Patrick with bananas unintentionally. But the UDFs, like that, there is a wild west of so many people that are building a ton of UDFs. So it would be hard to also figure out what to judge. So I think because I don't know, practical would be too boring. Like what's the most practical UDF you could build? But maybe something for creative, like what's the visualizations or something along those lines potentially. But I think you could do a UDF one. But I do think a lot of thought would have to go into, because if you ask for all UDFs, that's too broad because they can do everything. So you'd have to probably have a category. So maybe you probably could do UDF visuals for one, but then not allow NJ to apply because you'll probably automatically win. But yes, like yeah, I think in category types, like practical ones, which would be like really good functions for X, Y, or Z. But I could see a lot of people wanting to submit for that because so many people are doing community UDFs right now.
Yeah, and I also think we need a spot for all of those to live. And that would be something we could easily put on a community site in a minute. So that's a to do for me, is just a gallery to house UDFs.
There is I swear there is I thought it was like dax.lib. Some there is a place where people are posting community UDFs right now. I think that is out there
Oh,
somewhere.
okay. Well, let's find it.
Dax lib. Because I know Carrie
What is
Kalasko
it?
has posted a few.
DAX.
Dax lib, DAXLIB UD. Yeah, let's see if I can Google this. Dax, yeah, here we
What
go.
is
Daxlib.org.
daxlib.org?
Yep. And in there, yeah, there's like a subsection for UD. I think there's a subsection of UDFs, or is this UDF only? Oh, this is all just UDFs. Okay, cool. This entire thing is 100% community contributed. There are currently 24 in here, but we have Chris Barber, of course, has literally just chrisbarber.finance. It's funny. But yeah, there's a long series of and hopefully this continues to grow. But so far this is the one that I've seen that has done that. Like SQL BI has a bunch in here already. So like there actually is a SQL BI one that I think Kurt Bueller's posted, Gary Kalasko, some formatting, data goblins. Considering that Kurt and SQL BI has posted this already, I think this will likely be probably the one to be going to as it grows. I have a note even to myself. At some point, I want to do a visualization and stick it in here somewhere because I have a couple of visuals that I like in a very specific way, so I can transfer them over to a community post.
Cool. Really cool. Well, good. I did not know about this, so thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're welcome. It's like I said, I'm very excited to see like a year from now. Everybody's gonna have their like it's almost like BPAs. They're I'm sure I will have a predefined list that I keep in Tabular Editor, and each time I just get any new model from a client, just install. All right, these 15 UDFs. Yep, I want this. This is going to be in every model that I build for function calls.
Very cool. A lot of things coming out recently that I feel like are going to change the way that we work.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously AI is the big one. I know Kurt's done a lot of posts on like, and now we have the official MCP server that's for Power BI from Microsoft. I look forward to the day where I can sit here just talking to my mic and like I just watch like the changes happen on screen as you do. I think that I imagine that it will happen someday, but like that's my end goal is we first need real-time changes in the report layer, meaning like I don't have to edit the PBIP, save, close the file, reopen it to see the changes. Once we get live feedback on that, where I can edit the code and the report page changes in Power BI Desktop, and then right after that, I want like Copilot open where I can just like microphone ask questions like, hey, can my table change all of the columns and make them like this, and just boom, you watch like the updates as like a MCP controlled mouse, moves it over. I feel like there's a hill and I see the light on the other end of it. I feel like that's coming at some point. Skills will still need to be there because you need to ask the right questions. It's the manager rock scenario. If a manager asks for a rock and you just give them a rock without any additional questions than what kind of rock, you're going to go through that 1,000 times and it's not going to deliver anything of value. So we're going to move from more and more from coding to, I think, people are going to need skills to know how to interpret questions to things that are useful from an information perspective. Otherwise, we are going to be entering an era of a deluge of AI slop reports, I do think, because they will become very easy to make, but a lot of them are probably not going to get used for much because they're going to be cheap. So then therefore the cost is low. It's like, oh, just build as many as you want. And then you're going to pay for the capacity for them. So I think this is like it's a double-edged sword, right? We're going to get this new wave of all this stuff coming out, and developers and consultants will have a whole new problem to deal with in terms of AI siloing of all these like one-offs getting built.
My question about all the AI slop reports is just like, yeah, I totally see that happening. And then also, reports are built for a reason. It's so you can make a decision using them. So like, what's
Yep.
the, how do you win there if you just put out a bunch of junk?
Well, that's what I mean. Like it's I think right now, especially when you hire a constructor, and I'm coming from the perspective of like an external consulting shop, is a lot of
Yeah.
people build specific reports because they're expensive, and you have to think about what you want because it costs money and time to do all that. When you take out the cost and the time, I think there will be a just sure click a button for that. No, I don't like that. I'll just doesn't matter. I'm not going to delete. I'll just make another one and then make another one. So I think we'll end up with another version of siloing where we're just going to end up with so many items and artifacts because you can just click a button to make another one if you don't need to. Or like, oh, I like mics, but I want mine blue. So I'm just going to use AI to build a blue version for me because it will be easy to do, but then the cost is going to come into the capacity. So I can imagine a generation 2 of the wave of like previously with self-services, everybody built themselves, had developers do that, but then it became too much technical debt to manage too many items, or the capacity was too expensive because users couldn't build them efficiently and they'd hire shops to come in and fix things architecturally. I think we're going to get into that again, where you're going to have a bunch of junior developers building all this stuff. And the problem is like Python and notebooks can all be scripted well, one notebook at a time, but the AI isn't capable really out of the box of orchestrating the entire tenant to make sure that the end-to-end pipe is well designed. So I think you're going to end up with a lot of notebook siloing and capacity, and just punching your capacity for that. So I think shops will get hired in due to complexity and orphaning and siloing and complexity, but it's now going to come in from AI written code and notebooks and single stand-up reports all being built off of this. And then, I have 500 items in my tenant when I should only have like 20. So it's the exact same issue, but what's getting built has changed in terms of just, it's a complexity creep because you've made it so easy to build all this stuff, and it will become easier. So I easily see this as being a problem again, which will, sad for the organizations, obviously good for, it's great for being self-employed, but in a perfect world, I always just tell people is like, hey, you can hire us today to build this stuff from day one. And yes, there's an upfront cost, or you can come back to us in a year or two when you've, built things that work well enough, but you're paying for an F64 when you probably need an F12.
Yeah. I mean, like even from the early days of Power BI, the whole important bit has always been like wrangling the wild, wild west of the tenant and what's in there. Like that isn't, I don't think, really ever going to change unless it somehow becomes like extraordinarily cheaper to win. It wouldn't matter. Exactly. But
I mean, just I know we're a little out of time, but just like on the note of even some of that is the people have been arguing for, hey, at least 10 years is like, do we need semantic models anymore? Like, do we need to curate the data if we can just throw enough CPU at it? Like, can't we just throw a brain at a non-compressed, semi-structured database and just have it interpret off of that? But then it's a cost thing, right? Like, no, so yes, our CPUs are getting bigger, but we're also now, we had thousands of rows, and then it was hundreds of thousands, now it's millions, now it's billions. So our data is growing at the same size. So yeah, I was just asked this on a call of, non-discussed items, but one of the questions I got asked is like, is the semantic model going anywhere? And I actually would say it's more important than it's ever been now as a centralized location to let AI ask questions about your data, because it has semantic documentation, descriptions, and layers to prevent less guessing. I think semantic model it has been a cornerstone now of like BI more than it has been since before we got like GPT stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
But yeah, like as much as I love to nerd out on this stuff, I know I'm like, it's slightly related to the community and self-learning. But as we wrap up, is there any, if I look away from the camera, because it focuses on my face, come on. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, yeah. It's the issue if I look away. It tries to focus on the eyes of my things in the back, right over here, I think, is my guess.
Oh.
Yeah, because it looks for eyes on my camera, and it's supposed to be face autofocus. I turned it on because if I do this, Yeah, exactly. If I move back and forth, my face gets slightly blurry. But so yeah, remaining links, thoughts, notes, or any takeaways that we can use to wrap up the call.
I mean, I think my main takeaway that I wanted to just talk about on this call was
Mhm.
the fact that in order to learn this stuff, we have to use it. And I wanted to make sure that everybody knows of a way to be able to get hands-on in the tools and use it. We're trying to come up with creative stuff as Microsoft to help that process. And if anyone has ideas of how to do that better, like, we are all ears. Like, I am a part of the community, and we want to make sure that this is something that's led by us collectively.
I mean, I think we could at least both agree the number one pain point outside of learning the material to get started is the like, how do I get set up on the licensing? And I am glad we brought up the developer one. I think you can still apply for it, but that is the golden grail if you can get it to set up for that one, which gives you full sandbox of like every tool to go play around in, as long as you meet the, this is non-production, non-commercial usage for that. But yeah, yeah, like hopefully at some point there is a easier path to, like, if you just go to powerband.com or something else where there's a more clear path to like give me a 3-month trial just to play around, and then maybe sell this back to the company that I'm working at to like, hey, we should start using this.
Yeah. Yep. And I do believe, I know Microsoft is aware. So that's a good start.
Yeah, exactly. Any remaining questions? Just to double check in the chat.
Yeah, Jake was just confirming that the M365 dev program is super locked down. So it's hard to even sign up for it. Sometimes it depends on what region you're in. And then they did for a while have Fabric trial licenses blocked on the M365 dev tenants. So it's kind of a crapshoot. I do feel like if you know someone that has that, every person who has it has those 20 licenses, so you could hop on board with them. And also, hopefully something great is coming.
Yeah, no, well, I like where is it? Yeah, ontology is a thing again. Yeah, so the parallel that I was actually just thinking of regarding the developer one is it's kind of like when an Instagrammer talks about the hotspot at like Japan or something to go eat, and then everybody lines up to it, and like your road's a good thing. I think the developer license was kind of like a hidden, oh, you can go do this, but not a lot of people knew about it. It did get talked about enough that I'm sure Mike is like, oh, way too many people are setting up for this. We gotta tighten the belt. But that was the like hidden. You just have everything for a little bit, but just you can't tell that many friends about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people like me ran around and told everybody about it and blogged about it and all the things.
Yeah, that was. I've mentioned it at least a few times to various people. Like, hey, if you need to get started and you want to build a POC to show your company to try to get them to sign on to the Microsoft ecosystem, that's where you can go to for your sandbox, because a lot of stuff can't be built in 1 month. I think that's the hard part with the trials. Is I would hope they could take the 1 month trial and turn it to 3 months, because to build a lot of substantial stuff, unless you're working part-time to full-time, like 20 to 40, like people maybe have a couple of hours a week, and they need a few months to be, to doing that. Or so either a time-based thing or somehow like have some other telemetry that's usage or time, or some way to like let them spread that out when possible, or even able to just turn on or off, like with the Fabric trial. You get a total of X number of hours in this. When you log in, it will turn it on. You log off, you can set it to auto disable after an hour of inactivity, and that could let you use it over a year or something. But it would give people, I think, less pressure to have to fit something into a time window to get tangible value out of something.
I'm gonna just send some of my colleagues the timestamp of this piece of the conversation.
Please, absolutely. Hopefully that can maybe be some good ideas for that. Cool. If anything else, then as we log off, then Mario, good to go.
No, nothing for me. Just thanks for making the time to talk. I know this stuff is a little bit niche, but I'm hoping that people found it interesting and fun.
Well, yeah, and always great to chat with you and just honestly just be able to nerd out on stuff. And we had a good selection of people. There was Donald, Jake, I think. Yeah, Elena was here for a couple messages earlier, so plenty of familiar faces in the chat. Bernat was on earlier as well too, so
Yeah.
it's always good to see familiar faces or new ones, and people just getting a chance to hang out and talk shop with us as well too. So,
Oh, I have one thing. I was just looking at our
mhm.
notes. One more thing that I forgot to mention. We do have an upcoming initiative that we have not launched yet, but it is called Fabric Skills Fest, and it's
Oh, okay.
happening in the month of November. And with that, we are going to do a couple additional contests that are going to be like official contests with judges and prizes and all of that. So if people want to stay tuned to the contests page, which we have linked in the description. It's just aka.ms/community contests. That's coming, and it's going to include a bunch of live streams and all sorts of stuff, not just contests. But if you're looking to learn fabric at all, it's going to be a great place to start.
Excellent. Well, if you send that to me once we get the link live later on, I'll put it in the description as an update. So
Cool.
excellent.
Great. Thank
Then
you.
with that, we'll bid goodbye to the chat. Everybody have a great rest of your Friday afternoon, evening, night, or Saturday morning if you're tuning in anywhere down from Australia or New Zealand. And then otherwise, I'll see you all on the next live stream. All right. Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.